fear is the absence of love because you can be in the dark room, but unless you're active about turning on that light switch, let's say light in this case is
Right.
love, then you're in that darkness of fear.
Hey there. Welcome to Top of Mind. Real talk for today's woman. With Anna and Karen.
So we're back, and Anna's going to discuss F and F.
Yeah, see, when we talk about topics that we want to talk about, I keep coming back to F and F. Fear is one, and forgiveness. And Karen had it, said we talked about the, election and stuff when we joined this, and just a lot of, just in general, because we talked about before fear and how my feeling is, and I know this, and I, as a student now of A Course in Miracles and Marianne Williamson, is that, and even the Bible, I mean, the Bible talks so much, like, the Bible says 365 times, do not fear. 365. So throughout the Bible, it mentions do not fear 365 times. So I thought we would talk about fear, and fear is the absence of love. And, I've had some things happening this month that have made me more fear-based. I've had a couple health issues pop up for me. And it starts that fear. Is it a fear, like, what do we fear? Okay, do we fear death? I mean, we're all going to die, right? Do we fear going bankrupt? Do we fear not having enough? Like, I feel like a lot of times we're in this scarcity type of mindset, which to me is kind of more fear. And then it's like, I have a cup. Okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to just, allow this cup, this fear to spill out of my cup, drop by drop until it's empty? Or am I going to say my cup is half full, and I'm going to start adding gratitude and other things to it so that my cup becomes more full? So fear is a funny little beast. So Karen, tell me, what do you do when you're having a fearful moment or
I don't have
fearful?
those.
You don't?
So hang on. Let's just go back. You were saying something about fear is the absence of love, and
Yes.
am in studying Marianne Williamson, what I understood is you have two choices. One is fear or love.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think of fear as having an absence of love. I think of me choosing fear or choosing love, which I think is a bit different. It feels different to me.
I understand that, but I guess, my little thing of the fear or the love, it's almost like the light or the dark.
Yes.
Like you have to, you go into a dark room, you have to actively turn on the switch to have the light.
Right.
That's kind of how I say fear is the absence of love, because you can be in the dark room, but unless you're active about turning on that light switch, let's say light in this case is
Right.
love, then you're in that darkness of fear. Does that make sense? But I see both points. I mean, I
Yep.
definitely
Yep.
see your point you're choosing, but sometimes we're in that dark room.
Right.
How do we figure out how to turn that light switch on?
So, I think, and this is where, it faith, like that's what's just coming to me, you know, and I can't say that it's necessarily love. Like that was Marianne Williamson's
Mm-hmm.
thing, fear of love. And for a long time, that felt very right for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it stuck. But somewhere in there, and you can say love turns into faith, or love is a part of faith, or faith is a part of love. But when you say that, I think of what it was taught, the man up there in the sky with the beard and everything like that. And that's not exactly the way that I think of my own spirituality and the universe and things like that.
Right.
So that's where it's like, love my faith, or no, it doesn't feel right. But I would say that fear for me is replaced through faith. So that faith sometimes is just a willingness, and that's it.
Interesting. And I see your point. But I guess I'm taking it more to a more like basic level.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, let's say I don't know, let's just say I'm walking down the street and I'm not saying I'm in danger or anything, but I look at someone and my response to them is fear
Okay.
versus my response to them is, hey, you know, they're just me.
Okay, but hold on. You're given discernment, which is your ability to be able to preserve yourself. So you saw something. So when you say you're walking down the street and you felt
Well,
fear,
it's probably not a
it's
that's
not a good
probably not
example.
a good example. Let's go back to the dark room.
Okay,
You know,
so what you're
because like
talking about?
Faith would say, let's say we're in a dark room. Okay,
Okay,
Faith would say, "Oh, the light's going to come on. I have faith the light's going to come on."
okay. Actually, I'm going to give you a perfect example of this.
Oh, yes, let's do it.
Okay, I'll set the stage. I always wanted to go to the Tower of London. Okay, London Bridge, that's it. So I go for the tour at London Bridge. I didn't know what it was or anything like that. But anyway, the guy says, "Oh, a group just went by. I'm going to put you in this room and you'll be able to catch up to them." He throws me in and closes the door. I am in complete blackness.
Wow.
Complete. I have no idea where I am. So I'm like, what am I supposed to do? So I put my hands up and I start walking. Probably 30 seconds into it, the hackles rise in the back of my.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's going, and the mind starts, what's going on? Why am I in the dark all alone? Oh my God, this is scary.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And it's kind of like I'm reaching and it's like, what am I supposed to do? I don't know. So I stop for a minute. It's like, okay, take a deep breath. And I can feel the panic rising.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden it was just kind of like, you know what? There's nothing in here that's going to hurt you just because you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but I'm just going to keep going. And that's what I did. I just kept going, kept
Mm-hmm.
going. And you know what? That panic went down. Once I started moving and made the decision not to let it overcome me. But it was kind of like, let's just wait. Let's see what's going to happen. So it was like looking towards what was going to happen. Where are we going? Anticipation. See, fear in our body, anxiety in our body, our mind is what determines that it's fear or anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
It feels the exact same way to me as when my adrenaline dumps when I'm going to a call.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? When I first started on the job and you went whoop, 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 I was like the hound dog. I'm excited. Oh, we're going to call, right?
Oh. Yep.
So what's the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Is just what my mind says that it is, but the feeling physiologically in my body is the exact same response. So instead of letting the fear go, it was like, okay, so where am I going? Just keep going. What's going to happen? Let's see. And I got kind of excited. And then all of a sudden, door opened. The guy went, "There you are. We've been looking for you." He grabs me and pulls me in. And now I'm part of the tour. Like,
Oh.
to this day, it was the most surreal thing.
Wow.
But again, it's like the mind. Fear rose, and I actually switched it to anticipation, excitement. Like, let's see where this goes. We're okay.
Mhm. Yeah. I think that's actually a really good story. And I think you bring up a very interesting point is that we store these emotions in our body. It's kind of, and I was reading something that basically said, we think things start in our mind, but sometimes our emotions we feel in our body, and then our mind's like, oh my God, that's fear.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
And
that's
it's like,
very,
no, it's not. It's excitement. It can be.
yeah. Now let me ask you this question because that's a really good thing. But let's say you have a health issue.
Okay.
How do you change the dialogue of a fear-based, like say we talked about your brother in the last episode,
Yeah.
to not allowing that fear to take root and grow?
Well, and that's where faith comes. The one thing, spirituality, stuff like this, however you want to look at it, whether you have a pray for God or whatnot. I mean, AA has taught me that I am to plan, and let me see if I have this right. It's been a long time since I've heard it. I'm supposed to plan for the future, but not for the outcomes.
Well, that's kind of like the Buddhist that says, attached to nothing.
Yes.
Our
It's
suffering comes from attachment.
right. So it's also the same thing when we do amends. If you're doing amends to change a relationship, it won't work. You have to do the amends just to do the amends for yourself. And anything that happens after that is a bonus or a lesson, right?
Right.
So it's the same. So it's kind of like a health situation or something like that is I know that no matter what, in every situation that I've ever been in, because I've been in the worst places and I've survived, that I will be okay. And I think that that's my faith. And when I say that, that's not dependent on me. That's part of my spirit, my
Hmm.
spirituality is that I will be okay. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to like the outcome
Right.
or agree with it or anything like that, but I'll be okay. And that's the adjustment and the adaptation. I always see when Suska had lots of health problems and something will happen, we call it the new normal. At first it's like, oh my God, like when she had a stroke, oh my God, it's horrible, this type of stuff. A
Hmm.
month later, it's now become the new normal. She writes her name on her arm with her phone number, contact Karen, because she doesn't remember who she is.
Hmm.
That, at first it was like crying and oh my God, that somebody needs to do that. 2 months later, it's like, oh, it's okay. And that's
Hmm.
our adjustment.
Hmm.
And it's getting into that headspace from the beginning to know that no matter what, you can adjust.
I think that's a really, I think that's a very, powerful lesson that you're giving right now.
Well, it sounds like it's a very powerful lesson for you right now, my friend.
Hmm.
And that's what counts.
Hmm. And because again, I go back to the Buddhist saying that suffering is attachment. It's not, and honestly, I have to tell you, for a while there, I struggle with that. Like, what does that mean? Of course, I'm attached to my kids. Of course, it's not about that. It's about attaching to the outcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like attaching to how I feel like my kids should be professionally. Um, and that's what you just very, articulately said, you explained in a different way.
Yeah.
It's about, not attaching to the outcome of something, like
You
through.
were, you were and I put it to kids, which your language, it's kind of like, do you want your kid to be happy? Let's say being a doctor doesn't bring them happiness, but
Right.
being a janitor does. And that sounds
No,
disparaging, but it's kind
no,
of like
no.
most parents will want them to choose the happiness.
I hope.
Even
Yeah.
though, no, even though you may have wanted them to be the doctor. And that's where it's kind of like you detach
Hmm.
from that outcome.
Right. Yeah. And again, for a while there, I struggled with understanding that, and it's only been recently in the past couple weeks that I understand that more. And the same thing with, and I'm gonna crucify the expression, but it's how, suffering really is in our mind. Like, we create our own suffering. And
Yeah.
this goes back to even the health issues, and that fear is that, we create that.
Yeah. Well, I want to be careful about that because, it's kind of like, are we responsible for our um, the diseases or the illnesses that we cause within ourselves? And some would say yes, some would say no,
Hmm.
some perhaps. But the one thing I never want to do is to blame somebody because we're all at different places in that. If
And
I want,
I didn't mean like to, I'm just saying, like, as it relates to my health issues, I'm creating my suffering, not creating my health issues. My suffering is because I'm making it something in my mind.
right? Yes, yes, it's
That.
so, like an example is way back in the 80s when AIDS epidemic hit, and I'll do this quickly. A very close friend of mine, there was like 10 people in all of Toronto that was getting the AIDS virus, but not developing. No, they were getting HIV, but not developing AIDS. They couldn't figure
Mhm.
that, so they made a study group out of them. Now nowadays they call it a living disease or vaccinations, things like that. But back then, people were
Yeah.
dropping. Oh my
Yeah.
God, it was
Yeah.
horrendous, and it was very scary. It was like a pandemic, only they didn't call it as such. And he said that so they've kept tabs, they've had to go to groups and do this type of stuff. They've been the guinea pigs in helping the research further. And
Mhm.
he said the one thing that each of them had was a spirituality, a very strong, strong sense of spirituality. Now, I say spirituality, that can be religious, religious or non, but some sense that way. And so therefore, it's kind of like, and not to say that if you're not spiritual, you're to blame for your disease, but it was just interesting that that was one of the things that connected them all. That was one thing that seemed to determine they're not getting the disease in the end, even though everybody else on the planet did, type of thing.
Mhm.
So, so going back to your point, our brain can be very powerful that way.
Mhm.
Whether we accept something. I mean, we've heard of lots of people who heal themselves from diseases, but it's about the acceptance. And
Mhm.
sometimes for some people, it is acceptance that something might be terminal or is terminal or not. We've all seen people at the end of life as they're older. You think they've lived a good life. Some struggle with the ending, some don't. That type of stuff.
Mhm.
But the one thing, like you say, that we do have control over is our mind,
Yeah.
and we just have to be consciously aware that we do have a different choice.
Yeah, and that's what I say. Like, we make choices. Our life is our choice. And please, no, I don't mean just health. I just mean in general.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, and unfortunately, as humans, we attach a right or wrong to choices, and sometimes it's just a choice. Like we have to like remove part of that attachment. Like the Buddha thing is, it's detaching and stop saying, well, you know, and I try to teach my girls this, like you have a choice, but stop making a choice, one choice right and one choice wrong. Just
yeah.
make it a choice.
Yes,
It's
yes.
just a
Because
choice.
there's a lot of people that need to know right or wrong. And it's like, but life isn't right or wrong. Life is
Mhm.
gray. It's in the middle. And you know what?
Mhm.
The other thing is it's not right or wrong. It's like you make a decision and a choice. And then if it doesn't serve you, you make a different one.
Right,
And you're not committed to anything.
right.
So
Very true.
I really appreciate that we've lifted this up.
November. Hey, it's
No.
all straight from the heart, people. That's all we can tell you.
So on this another uplifting episode. I just want you can come to me for confidence and mindset as a coach, Karen Vale, and I am here with my enlightened and uplifting partner
So,
here.
Diego, see how uplifting this is. I'm sitting here in a giggle fest. I'm Anna Jennings, and I'm a midlife mentor.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.